Vegas. Yeah, it was in Atlanta, not last year, but the year prior, because I remember playing in that, because he beat me to make top 8 of the Atlanta Invitational last round.
Wow.
We were playing for top 8. He beat me with blue-white Delver. Real tough guy with his Delver deck. Flip it and killed me is what he did, and he's playing blue creatures again. He's got Tidebinder Mage. He's got a Jace out there. 2 copies of Judge's Familiar. He's also up a game, mind you, playing against Tyler Stechman and his blue-white control deck.
Looks like Jace is doing some pretty good work against Milton's board right now.
A little surprised to see the old Tidebinder in after sideboard.
Actually, I know some Blue Devotion players who essentially never take it out because they feel the 2 drops with 2 blue in their mana cost are just too critical to your Devotion count to get away from.
Sure. Scale of 1 to 10. Tyler's shirt.
I like it.
I like it a lot.
It's very Florida.
It's like loud, but not too loud.
Right, it's very Florida.
Yeah. I'm actually a big fan.
He can make it a little more Florida by just unbuttoning more of his top buttons, but right now it's pretty Florida.
That's true. That's true. A little chest hair.
Yeah, just not a lot, just a little
No,
bit.
just a little. I didn't say a lot. I just said a little.
Just a hint of it.
Okay. All right. It's kind of like a Florida Gators shirt.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of that color scheme to it. The orange and green.
Yeah.
And blue, yeah.
See the Hallowed Fountain after taking Jace up here for the well-dressed Stechman. Figuero going to untap and draw a card. We'll see how he wants to use his Jace. Obviously, the Judge's Familiars will not be getting in this turn, and we'll see where Tidebinder Mage does want to go. Also, a Nykthos out there.
Milton's got a lot of his spells covered, a lot of Tyler's spells covered with Gainsay in hand and multiple Judge's Familiars in play, but of course, there has to be a real concern with Supreme Verdict, and that's the fight that Mono Blue always has in this matchup. Applying enough pressure to, win the game in time before Revelations takes over, but not leaving yourself completely exposed in the event of a Supreme Verdict. And the cards that you see flip here by Milton's Jace activation are also a big part of that. That's that End Biding can allow it to play this nickel and dime game that it needs to do against decks with sweepers.
The only problem here is, and this is actually a really interesting part of the game, is, depending on how Stechman separates this, it depends on what he has in his hand. Could have a Gainsay, could have a Negate,
Right.
A lot of posturing could be going on here. Going to separate Biden by itself,
but that
even though Thassa and Mutavault are both awesome.
That is a loaded Jace, though, that's for sure. All 3 of those cards are really good here.
It could be a situation where it's like, oh, no, please don't take the Biden. All right, counter it. Something like that. That's something that's a very real possibility.
And the one, I'm assuming this is one Nykthos in his deck. It also is going to be awesome here because Milton wants to continue to push his board forward without playing into Supreme Verdict. He needs a lot of mana to do that and to hold up Gainsay as well.
So let's see what Milton wants to do. Does play a Mutavault. Can play Thassa right now, but I hate to run it into a counterspell because it's so important. See Milton's life total at 24 because of Last Breath. Gainsay. We're going to have a little fight. Because Nykthos Mana's floating.
4 in hand.
Could try to resolve Thassa now, too.
He has Judge's Familiars as backup as well, so. So Jace resolves. We got our Master Waves here.
Now's a good time to try to get Thassa into play. And that's like the real problem. Now, Stechman does have a Detention Sphere in hand, but I think there's a backup Thassa in Figueroa's hand, so he's sitting pretty. And again, it's the situation where, and Judge's Familiar, to be fair, could counter like a Negate or something at that point. But yeah, really sitting in a good situation right now for Figueroa of just grinding him down.
Yeah, all the card advantage is really stretching Tyler's defenses thin, This board's pretty good against Supreme Verdict because there's a Thassa and a Jace left over. It's also good against Detention Sphere because he still has a bunch of creatures and individually impactful cards in play as well. So a minus from Jace reveals a Detention Sphere, an Essence Scatter, and a Guild Gate. So Tyler's going to add the Detention Sphere to his hand.
Well, there's your Sphere. Looks like we're clearing something up here. Yeah, okay, so bottom.
Looked like Tyler was maybe second-guessing himself there, but the judge said you've gone too far in resolving the Jace activation.
Easy, easy, easy. It's just a feature match with thousands of people watching. It's not a big deal.
Not a big deal.
All right, so DC are going to take care of Thassa and pass the turn back.
And now this gives a window for Milton now, a clear shot at Jace.
Got to take it, I think. Got to get that Problemsome Planeswalker off the board. It's really interesting because, he drew Master of Waves for the turn. And Master is a really interesting card in this matchup because obviously it presents a very real threat, but it's not a threat that I think you ever expect to actually live.
Yeah.
It's just I'm going to play Master, and, if it does live, I can probably attack you for lethal, but it's not likely it's going to live, but I don't think you can board it out because the threat of it actually killing you is real.
Yeah, you're testing. It's a good test spell. It's not a bad follow-up post-wrath. And remember, after board especially, you're becoming more of a board presence deck, trying to minimize your exposure to wrath a little bit, so you're bringing in more Bidents and more Jaces. It can be pretty individually impactful by itself. But like you said, it's rare that you see Master of Waves just go unchecked and win the game by itself.
Yeah. You see the die in the middle there on Stechman's side. He's keeping track of the mana that Milton's making from Nykthos. He was able to make 6. 1 for each Judge's Familiar, 2 for Tidebinder, 2 for Jace. So that's 6 minus 4. It means there's 2 floating when this Master of Waves is placed onto the stack. And we'll see if this is going to resolve or not, or if we're just waiting for 7 elemental tokens. You see Stechman really giving this some pause. And, it's interesting, too, because we talk about how Mono Blue and Mono Black Devotion don't play Nykthos for the most part. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you'll see one at Nykthos and Mono Blue Devotion, but right now, it almost feels like, why aren't they playing more Nykthos when you can do awesome stuff like this? But it doesn't always mean the games break this way. You see Game State's going to target Master of Waves. That will get countered.
And even though Master of Waves is it's theoretically powerful in this spot, I'm sure Milton is happy to trade 1 for 1 with any card in his deck that plays further into Supreme Verdict.
Yes, yes.
Don't fight over that stuff because, you want to minimize your exposure anyway.
So creatures are going to come in. Judge's Familiar Mutavault going to go upstairs. Tidebinder Mage is going to take care of Jace. Milton Chase is going to tick up so he can use it next turn and still have it left behind. And that, my friends, is called using all of your mana on one turn.
That is a really nice, efficient turn for Milton.
Yes. Left with a beautiful board coming from multiple angles. Judge's Familiar actually being relevant. Thassa preparing to scry and attack for a bunch. Jace going to be able to draw extra cards. And don't forget about the Mutavault in the back row either.
Yeah. You got a Supreme Verdict here, that's fine. Still got Thassa, Jace, and Mutavault. If you don't have Supreme Verdict, you are in a ton of trouble.
Yes. Also, your Revelations in your hand, which is the card that actually catch you up. And as much flack as I give Judge's Familiar, it's making Revelation look terrible.
It's got it on lock.
Yeah.
Was checking Advent of the Worm, too, not that long ago.
It was. Maybe it's just because the kind of decks that I play make Judge's Familiar look bad. All creatures all the time. Supreme Verdict kind of be placed in the stack and resolve here. But as you mentioned, Supreme Verdict doesn't really matter a ton right now.
It's a good start, but Tyler's got to deal with all these individually impactful cards as well.
Quicken going to cantrip to make sure that Tyler can hit a land drop. Mutavault will be the card that he did draw. Time to scry with Thassa. Milton will consult his hand. Bottom, that card goes. Take a draw. Cyclonic Rift. And now Jace is going to take down to find another Jace, a Bident, and an island. And the last Jace was pretty good, and this one is similarly good.
These are some juicy Jaces we're seeing on Milton's side of the table.
Wow. This is a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. They're both so good, both cards. Do you take the 5-mana Jace? Do you take the Bident? I think you want the Bident just to have permanent devotion. It feels like.
If Milton thinks that his shields are down, then Jace can win the game also in 2 turns and put Tyler on having very few outs. But this is more of a conventional route that Milton's taking here.
Felt like the shields were down, especially when the Quicken was main phase to try to hit a land drop.
Yeah, that's not a play of someone with negate in their hand, that's for sure.
It's time to attempt to resolve, I think, that Bident of Thassa. That's placed on the stack. Stechman not even reaching for his hand, showing that I don't really have very much here. And now it looks like Nykthos might activate for 5 blue. Is that true? Is it time for 5 blue?
Yeah, it looks like we might be looking at something like Judge's Familiar plus Master
Plus
of Waves.
Master, yeah. We're going to actually see a Nightveil Spectre. And now it's Haka-Yu for more than 2. Actually, 5. He's going to use the last mana, making a blockable so Beautiful can't get in the way.
Okay.
Again, using all of his mana every turn.
And also not playing into, you draw a Supreme Verdict. That's okay. I still got backup, you know?
It's good pacing.
Yeah, Milton being very careful here. And he has a blocker to protect his Jace as well in all of this, too, from the Mutavault. So just pressuring Tyler from a lot of different angles. It's really hard for Tyler to get a foothold in this game the way it's the way the pacing is going. And even if Tyler draws his best cards, Milton has either hedged against them or has additional things he can be doing.
And there you do see the God of the Sea. Surprise, surprise, the blue one's the best one. What a shockaroo.
Yeah, the card drawing one that's cheaper than all the rest of them in blue is the best one. Who would have guessed? What were the odds of that?
See, the Tension Sphere going to take care of Thassa.
Not that it actually draws cards, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, might as well.
Yeah, it effectively does.
And now here's a divination from Stechman. Try to keep his head above water, but when you have to deal with a Bident and a Jace, in addition to everything else that's out there, we can't forget about those Mutavaults, it sure is tough.
And, 5 cards in Milton's hand as well.
Yeah, we can't ignore that. Jace going to tick up. In comes, we think. Decides Mutavault wants to come play, making a 2-turn clock. So Mutavault and the Spectre are going to come in. Going to knock Stechman down to 4. 2 triggers on the Bident. Rip, rip. 1 from the Spectre. Sphinx's Revelation. Isn't that cute?
Ooh, with Judge's Familiar,
Yeah.
we can make a white mana.
Oh, wow. Off the Nykthos.
Layers within layers.
This is fun for everyone.
I don't think we're going to get to that stage, but it's nice to imagine.
I can only hope.
We could, yeah.
Don't disappoint me now. Judge's Familiar's going to come down. Milton going to leave some mana open, represent a counter spell here. Also has access to Cyclonic Rift, which you can say pick up everything. So those Attention Spheres, as nice as they are, those might have to go back to the grip and bring some things back here. And he has 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, yeah.
And the Cyclonic Rift, if Stechman had an Elspeth here or something, we'd also just be able to check that too.
Yeah. Checking what's on the board is pretty good. Here's I think, Supreme Verdict, yeah. Which doesn't really care too much about, does Figuero. Revelation will stay exiled. See if he wants to just cash in maybe just a normal Cyclonic Rift here.
Yeah,
since he can't overload it now.
Just get rid of that Thassa. You're representing a lethal attack.
Yeah. And plus he's got 2 in his hand, so he can just try to bounce it twice.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's what it looks like he's going to do. He's going to make Nykthos mana. So he's got 4 blues. Says bounce at Attention Sphere. I'd like my Thassa back, please. If that's okay with you. That's going to happen. Thassa will come back. Stechman's hand right now. He has the Sphere that was just bounced. He also has a Last Breath in his hand, so he can actually Last Breath his Mutavault to go up to 8. Because Cyclonic Rift can't bounce lands, can't actually pick it up in response.
Still quite an uphill challenge right now.
Oh, yeah. There's a Tidebinder. I want to make sure Devotion's going to stay on the entire time. You can tell Milton's been playing this deck, it seems like, for a little while.
Yeah.
His sequencing is really good.
He seems to be at all times conscious of the cards he's playing around. What are Tyler's ways to get back in the game? He's closing every door.
We're going to go to the attack step here. Thassa and Mutavault, they're coming to town. And what looks to be a lethal attack, even though we know there's a Last Breath hanging out. You're going to activate that Mutavault. Going to block a Thassa. If he's allowed. And the answer, I believe, is yes. Okay. Here's a Last Breath to check his old Mutavault. When he's allowed to, I assume that's what will take place. Can't be thrilled about it, but gotta do what you gotta do to make it to the next turn. So, yep. Last Breath actually going to target the Mutavault. Okay. The other Mutavault, not his own. So Figueroa's going to go up to 28. There goes Stechman's Mutavault. Now Figueroa, after taking up his Jace, Nykthos is going to provide 2, 4, 5, 6. There's a Master, there's a Tidebinder. Basically saying, if you cast Verdict, you're just going to die.
Yep, Thassa has.
Thassa. It's a lot of water horsies. Hit 1. Hit 2. Last Breath and an extension of the hand. Milton Figueroa with mono blue devotion is going to defeat Tyler Stechman. 2 games to 0, and that means mono blue devotion is 7-0. Very reminiscent last weekend. Raymond Perez Jr. also off to a nice start with that deck last week and ended up making top 8. Didn't hoist the trophy, but he started off really hot, and Figueroa's doing the same.
Yeah, he was our first overall seed, I believe, at the end of the Swiss rounds. And yeah, Milton's 7-0 right now.
Maybe mono blue isn't done just yet.
Well, his take on the list is a little bit different here. We have 4 copies of Omen Speaker.
Oh boy, Shaheen, I'm sorry. Shaheen would be so mad right now.
Not
very anti-Omen Speaker. The expensive sorcery master that is Shaheen Saroni. He hates Omen Speaker. He's just said it just shouldn't even be printed. It's awful, unplayable. That's what he says.
Well, plenty of people enjoy casting it, so it definitely should have been printed.
Oh,
it's clearly not ruining anyone's time that it exists, and some people like it quite a bit.
Ruin Shaheen's?
Well,
he hates it.
If he didn't have things to be mad about, he would be less happy. So, unbeknownst to him, it actually is integral to his happiness as well. You know?
Yeah, you know.